The school meeting in just a minute.
Should be good.
And then if you're not using it for a little while,
shut it off.
shut it off.
Okay.
Just stay.
It's 9:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. In your town report, if you don't have one, there are some on the table. The second table as you come through the door. And we're on page 48. The legal voters of Hardwick Town School District are hereby warned to meet for the annual school district meeting at the Hardwick Elementary Gymnasium, Hardwick, Vermont, on Tuesday, March 5, 2019, to transact the following articles of business. The annual school district meeting will be at 9:30 a.m. I'm going to wait on that one. Article 1, to elect the following school district officers for the ensuing year. School district meeting moderator. What is your pleasure? Have a nomination for Ori Zainsworth. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed. All those in favor of electing Ori Zainsworth for school district meeting moderator for 1 year, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried, and I thank you very much. District clerk, currently it is Alberta Miller. What is your pleasure? Have a motion for Alberta. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed. And all those in favor of electing Alberta Miller for district clerk for 1 year, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and Alberta is elected. District treasurer is also Alberta Miller. What is your pleasure?
Nominate Alberta Miller.
Have a nomination for Alberta Miller for district treasurer. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing Alberta Miller for 1 year as district treasurer, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries, and Alberta is elected. The alternate district treasurer is currently Tanya Gray. Any nominations?
I nominate Tanya Gray.
Have a nomination for Tanya Gray. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed. All those in favor of electing Tanya Gray as the alternate district treasurer, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And Tanya is elected. Thank you. Article 2, to elect all necessary school board directors as required by law. 1 Hazen Union School Director for a term of 3 years, 1 Hardwick Town School District Director for a term of 3 years, 2 Hardwick Town School District Directors for a term of 1 year, and 1 Hardwick Town School District Director for a term of 2 years of a 3-year term. And those are being voted on by Australian ballot in the back of the gym. Article 3, shall the voters of the school district authorize the following salaries to be paid for the officers and directors of the school district? School board chair, school board member, zeros. And the district treasurer, $1,145 per year. The alternate district treasurer, $44 per pay period worked. And the district clerk, no salary. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
We have a motion to move Article 3 as previously read. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving Article 3 as I previously read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 4, to hear and act upon the reports of the Hardwick Town School District officers and directors. What is your pleasure? We have a motion to approve Article 4. Is there a second? Any discussion or questions of the school board on their reports? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the reports of the Hardwick Town School District officers and directors, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. The legal voters of the school district are further notified that voter qualification, registration, and absentee voting relative to said meeting shall be provided in Chapter 43 of Title 17, Vermont Statutes Annotated. Article 5, to transact any other business that legally may come before the meeting. Any questions, concerns of the school? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And we are adjourned. Record meeting, 6 minutes. Oh, yes. And also on March 15th, there will be a continuation of the organizational meeting for the new unified elementary school district. It'll be held here in the gym. It's a Friday night at 6 p.m. And it's to set up the district with how to elect the officers, how to do the budget, and other issues. So it would be nice if we had some Hardwick voters there. Thank you. Town meeting starts at 10 o'clock.
looking Wednesday morning and I didn't see anything posted. Yeah. I just happened to see it. Yeah, yeah, Like pretty shortly, sure. Just wasn't on the schedule. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't. Well, I'm bummed I didn't leave you guys the sponsors. Yeah, I know we did. I know it did.
Right here.
Right there.
She said she was.
Okay.
Hi, Dave. Hardwick Town meeting will be called to order in 2 minutes.
We're going to be using this mic today, and the light needs to be green. You can sing.
I'm not speaking. I'm not speaking.
You don't want to hear what you know me.
Good morning. It is now 10 o'clock, and I call the meeting to order. The legal voters of the town of Hardwick, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Hardwick Elementary School in said town of Hardwick on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon to act on the following business: the election of Town Select Board, Town Clerk, Town Treasurer, Hardwick Town School District Directors, and Union School District number 26 directors will be voted on by the Australian ballot. And also being voted on today is a special bond for the replacement of the roof of the water reservoir off Bridgman and Hazen's annual budget. The polls will be open from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. If special accommodations are necessary because of physical disabilities, please contact the town clerk's office, and you can see someone at the polling booth or Alberta or Tanya today if you need assistance. Article 1, to elect a moderator to govern said town meeting and for the year ensuing. What is your pleasure? Have a nomination for Ori Zainsworth. Are there any other nominations? Nominations do not need a second. Hearing no other nominations, all those in favor of Ori Zainsworth for moderator for 1 year, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And Ori thanks you. Before we go on any further, I just want to do a little housekeeping. At the front table in the lobby where the sixth graders are selling lunch and goodies and coffee, they also have a little plug for the organizational meeting for the new unified school district that we will be going into, and it's on March 15th at 6 p.m. here in the gym. The Hardwick Area Food Pantry also has a flyer out, and I believe it's on the table as you first come in, on the statistics and needs of the Hardwick food shelf. And then the select board have put out another flyer that's on that front table on the info on the roof bond. And I'd like to start with the head table introducing themselves. But before we start, our new town manager, Sean Fielder, is not a Hardwick resident. So if there is no objection from the crowd, I will say that the rules have been suspended and we allow him to speak as is necessary throughout the meeting. Does anyone object to that? Okay, then we'll start with introductions. Sean?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to be your town manager, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am Sean Fielder, and it's been a busy couple of months here with various tasks, but just pass along a thank you to the Select Board for allowing me to come to the community. I've interacted with a number of you, and looking forward to providing service to the citizens of the community. Real quick, my business manager is Casey Rowell, and she's over here if she could raise her hand. And our payroll and benefits administrator in the town manager's office is Amanda Fecto. I'd just like to say thank you to both of them. They've been instrumental in my coming on board and providing a lot of information and keeping things functioning smoothly. So thank you. I look forward to interacting with all of you at some opportunity. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Eric Remick. I'm chair of the select board.
I'm Sherry Cornish, select board member.
Elizabeth Dow, member of the select board.
Lucian Avery, select board member. Danny Hale, vice chair.
Aaron Cochran, chief of police.
Tom Fadden, road foreman and fire chief.
Thank you, guys and ladies. Also, for the restrooms, if you go through this door here to my rear right and go way to the back, there'll be restrooms on the left, or you can go out into the lobby, around the corner through the other exit, down the hallway to the right, and you'll find restrooms there. Robert's rules are the basic rules of order for this meeting. All motions and remarks should be addressed to the moderator. Articles must be moved and seconded, then restated by the moderator before debate can begin. For the previous article to be reconsidered, the request must be made before the moderator restates the next article. This requires the request to reconsider be from a person that voted on the prevailing side. And yes, I will ask how you voted. And state law allows this. This is not a Roberts rule, but state law allows that. Articles may have one amendment, and the amendment can be amended once. The voting to proceed from the last proposed amendment back to the main motion. And we can do this any number of times that you so wish. No seconds are needed for nominations. A paper ballot is required for the election of town listers and auditors. This can be done by a motion to direct the clerk to cast a paper ballot, so therefore we don't all have to vote. Debate can be stopped with a motion to call the question, which requires a two-thirds vote. However, the person making the motion must first be recognized by the moderator. It cannot just be hollered from the floor. The role of the moderator is to explain procedural questions, but no voter should hesitate to ask questions on articles to understand what is being voted on. Just stand and say point of order, and that takes precedence over anything else on the floor. Voters need to stand when recognized, wait for the microphone. Paige is around here somewhere. She's in the back with the microphone, and then state your name before speaking. A voter will not be recognized to speak a second time on the same motion or amendment until all other voters who wish to speak for the first time are given a chance to do so. And I'm asking out of courtesy, if your cell phone rings, please take the call in the lobby, because I know there are people here that need their cell phones on. Non-voters may only speak if the House suspends the rules by a two-thirds majority, and I'm going to hold you to that as a trust issue. If the moderator cannot decide the outcome of a voice vote, a division of the House will be required, so I'll ask you to raise your hands. And if someone wishes a paper ballot at any time, only 7 people need to agree. Lunch and beverages, as I said, are out in the lobby by the 6th grade group to raise money for their field trip to Nature's Classroom. And I thank you all for being here, for electing me moderator, and let's have a wonderful, friendly meeting. Now moving on to Article 2, shall the town accept the town report year ending June 30, 2018? And if you don't have a copy, these are also on the table as you come in the front door. What is your pleasure on Article 2? Have a motion, is there a second? And I have a second. Any discussion or questions on the town report? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the town report as presented for year ending June 30, 2018, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. To elect all the town officers and school district directors as required by public law of Vermont and the town charter, the select board, town clerk, town treasurer, Hardwick Town School District directors, and Union School District number 26 directors are voted on by Australian ballot. Before we continue, I would like to suggest that we do a correction, and if there's no objection, we can just do it. Halfway down the page is to elect cemetery trustees, and the trustees for West Hill and one other, and Hardwick Center were not listed, so I'm going to add those to that list. That's a correction in the town report. The first office up is a lister for a 3-year term, currently held by Jean Hackett. What is your pleasure? Have a nomination for Jean Hackett for lister for 1 year. Are there any other nominations? If someone would make the motion that nominations cease and the clerk cast 1 ballot. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the clerk casting 1 ballot for Jean Hackett for lister for 1 year, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries and Jean is elected. The auditor is also required for a paper ballot, and that is a vacant seat. Are there any nominations? Anyone want to volunteer? If not, then we can pass over this and the select board will appoint a auditor for 1 year of the 3-year term. And then we'd have to look at this again next year for the 2 years remaining. First constable is currently Arthur Chase for a 1-year term. What is your pleasure? Have a nomination for Art Chase for constable for 1 year. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing Arthur Chase for constable for 1 year, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay, and Art is elected. Second constable for a 1-year term is currently Erwin Gilchrist Sr. What is your pleasure? Have a nomination for Erwin Gilchrist for 1 year. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed for second constable, and all those in favor of electing Erwin Gilchrist Sr. for a 1-year term as second constable, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries, and Erwin is elected for constable, second constable for 1 year. One town agent for a 1-year term is currently Karen Holmes. What is your pleasure? Nominate Karen Holmes. Have a nomination for Karen Holmes. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed for town agent, and all those in favor of electing Karen Holmes for a 1-year term as town agent, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried, and Karen is elected. Excuse me. Surveyor of wood, bark, and lumber for a 1-year term is currently Lucian Avery. All those, whoops, let's do nominations first. Are there any nominations for a 1-year term for surveyor of wood, bark, and lumber? Nominate Lucian Avery. Have a nomination for Lucian. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed for surveyor of wood, bark, and lumber, and all those in favor of electing Lucian Avery for 1-year term, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay, and the motion carries, and Lucian is elected. Tree warden for 1 year is also Lucian Avery currently. What is your pleasure? Nominate Lucian Avery. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing Lucian Avery for a 1-year term as tree warden, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries, and Lucian is elected. Cemetery trustees are on page 4, on the bottom right column, and we have, no, second one up from the bottom. We have the Main Street, which are trustees, Maple Street, which are trustees, Fairview, which is trustees, and then Sanborn, West Hill, Hardwick Street, and Hardwick Center are all run by the select board. You can do them as a unit, and it's a 1-year term. What is your pleasure? I have a motion to approve the slate as I read for 1 year. Is there a second? All those in favor of the, as we say, the same old board for the cemetery trustees, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Fire department officers are on the top of the right-hand column on page 4. If there is no objection, I will not read that down through, but you can also do that as a group. What is your pleasure? Is there a second to that motion? I have a second. Any discussion or other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of electing the fire department officials as printed on the top of page 4, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries, and you have your fire department officials. On library trustees, we have currently 1 year remaining of a 3-year term that is empty. What is your pleasure? Would anybody like to volunteer for that position? If not, then the select board will appoint that position. We need 2 library trustees for 3-year terms. Are there any nominations? I've got names here if you want to. I can't do it.
Them to come in and
Okay.
I think Michael just went to get
Okay. I think they just went. Oh, there's Jody. Is there any objection to backing up now that Jody is here with her nominations and doing the 1 library trustee with 1 year remaining of a 3-year term? Not seeing any objections, I will go back then. And we need a nomination for the 1 library trustee with the 1 year remaining of a 3-year term.
I nominate Elizabeth Rosano.
We have a nomination of Elizabeth Rosana for that position. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing Elizabeth Rosano for the 1 year remaining of a 3-year term, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried and Elizabeth is elected. We have 2 library trustees with a 3-year term. And yes, 3, I'm sorry. 3 library trustees for a 3-year term, and in the book, they are George Hemmons, Joyce Mandeville, and Kathleen Sampson. And what is your pleasure?
I nominate Andrea Breitenbach, Brendan Buckley, and Kathleen Sampson.
Are there any other nominations for library trustees for 3 years? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing Andrea Breitenbach, Brendan Buckley, and Kathleen Sampson to serve as library trustees for 3 years, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, and the motion carries. And that's it for the library trustees. Moving on to grand juror for a 1-year term, currently held by George Whitney. What is your pleasure?
Nominate George Whitney.
Have a nomination of George Whitney. Are there any other nominations for grand juror? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing George Whitney for a 1-year term as grand juror, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries and George is elected. Trustee of Public Funds for a 1-year term is also currently being served by George Whitney. What is your pleasure?
Nominate George Whitney.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing George Whitney for a 1-year term of Trustee of Public Funds, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Trustee of Public Funds, there's also a 1-year position currently held by Mario Fredette. What is your pleasure?
Nominate Mario Fredette.
I have a nomination for Mario. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, And all those in favor of electing Mario Fredette for a one-year term as trustee of public funds, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. The third trustee for public funds for a one-year term is currently held by Lorraine Huzzy. What is your pleasure?
Nominate Lorraine Huzzy.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of electing Lorraine Huzzy for a one-year term as trustee of public funds, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. The last one on the list is fence viewers, which is currently held by our local listers for a one-year term. What is your pleasure?
I nominate the listers.
Have a nomination for the listers for a one-year term as fence viewer. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and all those in favor of electing the listers as fence viewers for a one-year term, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried, and the listers are your fence viewers. Article 4, shall the town have its current taxes collected by the town treasurer? What is your pleasure? Have a motion to approve Article 4. Is there a second? Any discussion on the town having its current taxes collected by the town treasurer? All those in favor of the town having current taxes collected by the town treasurer, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried, and the town treasurer will be where you pay your taxes. Article 5, shall the town vote a budget of $3,359,616 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the town and authorize the select board to set a new tax rate sufficient to provide the same? What is your pleasure? Have a motion. Is there a second? And I have a second. Any discussion on the $3,359,616 budget? Questions? Eric? Okay. Tag team. Yep. Okay, so our town manager is going to give us the state of the town address, and then they'll go into the
have to frame it that way.
Yes, and then we'll go into the discussion on the budget.
Good morning, everybody. Nice and loud. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. So 2 months in, I think everybody is aware that John Jewett retired in December, and just would like to acknowledge his years of service to the community. I'll just review some of the information that is coming from John's tenure stepping out and my couple of months here in the first part of 2019. I did already introduce our business manager and payroll and benefits administrator, and as I said, appreciate their efforts just keeping me in line and keeping everything functioning smoothly. At the close of FY18, town was able to put $43,301 in the fund balance, which is our so-called town savings account. Fund balance, so everybody is advised, is just over $400,000, and that's about 13% of our town budget. It's important we have reserves to cover any cost overruns, and as an example, this year, you know, we've had some issues with a lot of snow removal, as everybody is aware, having to buy some extra salt to keep up with this long winter that we've had. So those are some of the examples where if we go over what we had budgeted, we're in a position to cover some of those costs. Just for a baseline and a basis, that number that I've mentioned in reserve is about 13% of the town's budget. The industry recognized standard is a target of about 15%. And for what it's worth, in the previous fiscal year, we were at about 12%. So we have improved as far as what we have in reserve to just respond, you know, if we have a rainy day situation, some kind of a disaster situation that might develop. As everybody on the water system and wastewater system is aware, we did implement a new rate structure for both water and wastewater this year. And we're getting a one-year cycle under our belt, and that'll be June 30th of this summer that will have that 1-year cycle under our belt. At that time, the select board will be doing an evaluation just to make sure, is this new rate structure making sense? We have had some questions at the clerk's office as well as at the manager's office about the new rate structure. And the objective with the changes that were made is that it is a fair and equitable system. So again, we're going to be doing that evaluation with the select board's input and citizenship, those water and wastewater users having the opportunity to comment. Something I feel is really important about this process and everybody should be aware of is that the water and the wastewater service is not a tax, it is a utility service. And you know, we have to run that as an enterprise fund, if you will. It's a business. So you know, we're hoping we have a good rate structure in place and that it does work for everybody. I'll comment a little bit further in here about the Bridgman Hill Reservoir, and we can talk about that, how that's going to impact things moving forward. We did complete a number of projects in 18, including stormwater, sidewalk projects. So as examples, South Main Street, paving on Hardwick Street, Church Street, Slap Hill, East Hardwick Village, Brown Farm Road, Cottage Highland Ave, and the Swing and Bridge area, as well as new flooring in the public safety building. In addition, completed a number of equipment purchases, and you know, I'm obviously new coming into the system here, but just my observation is the community has done a really good job with support of the voters to have capital reserve funds in place. So if we have a really good capital replacement schedule set up, whether it's infrastructure or a truck as an example. The community does a good job of saving some money and you know, being ahead of the curve, if I can say it that way. What's really important and sound about that procedure is that, you know, it prevents a situation where you have to do an excessive charge to get something paid for. And it does keep, whether it's property tax or utility fees, in check so that you're not having a huge increase of 40 or 50% in a given year if something comes up, but you have a small increase from year to year that's hopefully manageable and affordable for folks. So in regards to equipment, purchases that took place in this fiscal year were police cruiser, fire department safety gear, snow blower, F-550 cab and chassis, snowmobile for the trails department. Some additional commentary, and this is where I'll talk about Bridgman Hill Reservoir. You know, the timing of the roof failure is prophetic and frustrating. And if you haven't heard this, I'm of the humble opinion, you know, there was a little bit of snow on the roof, but I'm of the humble opinion it was literally that roof had exceeded its life. And I think additionally we had, and I don't think anybody would argue with this, we had some pretty significant wind over this past, you know, over that weekend. And we may have seen a gust of 70 miles an hour up there. I don't think that's too far from the truth. So these things added up to lead to the structural failure of the roof. You know, we did, I want to say thank you to the Public Works Department, the clerk's office, my office, Amanda and Casey. They really responded quickly and timely to get this piece of infrastructure isolated. And then we made the determination, put ourselves on a boil order to protect the public's health, to protect your folks' health, and you know, responded as fast as we could to just verify the water quality was good, get our system back up and running within, you know, better than we expected. We had predicted 5 to 7 days, and we had the issue resolved in about 4 days. You know, this being said, as everybody knows, we had a previously planned bond vote, and you know, hopefully everybody is going to be supportive of that. I think a key point that was mentioned in the hearing this past Thursday night on the Bridgman Hill Reservoir is that we have, as I've already mentioned in my narrative, done a good job of capital reserve funding in the community. So there's a pretty significant nest egg that was already set aside to support this particular project. And also, we are in a very favorable position from the Department of Environmental Conservation. The Facilities Engineering Division is the group that we're collaborating on with and anticipating and would have our funding approval with, assuming we get clearance from the citizens on this bond vote. That's a very favorable rate, gives us good subsidy. And the meat and potatoes are this: for what is estimated to be a $420,000 construction project for this roof replacement, the cost per user, per water connection, and to be clear, this is just being paid for by those folks that are on the water system connected, would only be $6 additional per year on your water bill. I hope folks would agree that's a pretty reasonable cost. So I'll say it again, you know, hopefully the community is supportive of moving forward on this bond vote. I'll change gears and just talk about some other public works projects planned for 19. This includes paving. So again, this is for 2019. Paving of Glenside Avenue, Summer Street, Holton Hill, and Dewey Street. We are doing ongoing improvements to our wastewater treatment facility and wastewater collection system. I think everybody knows that, you know, with the ag economy and us continuing to try to build the economy here in Hardwick, it's important we have adequate water and wastewater service. And the Public Works folks are really working diligently to see good operating service here. In a nutshell, we do have good capacity on the water and wastewater side, so that you know, we're in a good position to continue to build, as an example, on our ag economy, and also on what I see coming at us, which is a recreational economy. I think a lot of citizens are aware that we've got the LVRT, Lamoille Valley Rail Trail projects in the works. Those have been in the works for many years. We're anticipating, you know, we're hoping this next year or two we're going to see some construction so that the Hardwick sections of the LVRT will be finished out, if you will. Don't take that to mean completely finished, but some of these bridges that are impassable now, hopefully we'll have decks on those. So now, you know, we have the section complete. And to say it another way, this is the one section where you can't necessarily get through the route because of some of the infrastructure's conditions. So we get these things closed out and in place, it's going to bring a lot more folks into the community, and that's important to support jobs and, you know, support the restaurants, support all the businesses, support our tax base. That's really important. So we got a lot of positive things happening there. We are continuing to collaborate with the Center for Agricultural Economy, and we have the Yellow Barn project ongoing. So NVDA, Northeast Vermont Development Association, is providing a lot of support on that particular project, so we appreciate their efforts. So everybody is advised, if you're not aware, John Jewett is actually serving as a special projects manager for the Yellow Barn project. And from my perspective, that is a very positive thing. There's a lot to be doing in the town manager's office in regards to the town's day-to-day operations. And the Yellow Barn project in itself there's just a lot to manage. The town is supportive of that. We're going to be involved. We're going to be owners. But it's nice to have somebody there to keep track of navigating processes such as seeking out the grant funding, you know, with the support of NVDA, making sure the permits are in order, you know, getting your engineers lined up, talking to prospective clients that are going to be coming into the space. This project has a lot of you know, potential to further build on this ag economic base for the community. And again, we got to build jobs in our state. I think everybody's aware of that, and we've got some good options here. Hardwick's in a good position, you know, given these activities that are ongoing. I don't have anything else to report. I just I appreciate the select board being supportive of my efforts. It has been a busy 8 weeks. I appreciate continued feedback from the community. Criticism if you have it, suggestions for improvement if you have it, and you know, my contact information's out there. This is a great community. I'm proud to be here, and there's a lot of good things happening moving forward, so I'm honored to be in the town manager's role. I'd answer any questions. If that would be appropriate, I'd be glad to take any questions from the audience.
Paige, you want to bring the mic down? Paul, put your hand up so she can see where you are if you have a question.
Thanks for your comments. One thing I'd like to mention, it came up when the select board was talking about the new water rates. but I know not everybody comes to select board meetings or watches. So one thing I noted is that a special rate is set for this elementary school, which apparently uses water one time in their climate control system and then sends it out as wastewater. As I understand it, and somebody who was on the select board could maybe confirm this, the elementary school is really paying for half as much water as they really use. And their system could be corrected for about the difference between what they pay and what they could pay. So my concern about this, if the school budget and the town budget were paid by the exact same people, it really wouldn't matter. But as it is, people on the water district are subsidizing our school inordinately. And I'd just like to make that comment that be looked into and dealt with in some fashion.
Thank you, Paul. Jennifer, did you want to respond to that? She's chair of the board.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Fliegelman. I'm the chair of the Hardwick School Board. So two things about that. One is that we think that there's a problem with something about the water meter. Efficiency Vermont is working with the school to try to figure out where that problem is. The leading theory right now is that it is a problem with the meter, that we're not using as much water, nearly as much water as it's showing that the school is using. And we are working on that. We're working with Efficiency Vermont. They're bringing engineers in to figure out what the problem is. We are also purchasing new cooling systems so that we will not be using nearly as much water as we have been.
Thank you.
I'd just like to
go ahead.
Add to that so as Jen just stated, the school is aware of this issue and they're working on it. And then further, like other utilities, the water system rates are not based entirely on usage. Some of it is the capacity to take water. So the schools in particular need a large capacity in case of fire especially. But so part of it is just supplying the infrastructure for really high volumes if needed.
Any other questions for Sean at this point? Paige, over here on your right.
Just before we take that next question, just one other detail. The water department in my office has been collaborating with Jeff and John Smith over at OSSU about this issue. So we have in this past 2-week period actually done some on-site work just to check, are our meters reading accurately? So we are, we're working to make sure the meters reading properly. And then to Eric's point, just folks need to recognize it's an institutional rate situation. So we're comfortable. The system is tight, if I can say it that way. And I think we've got that meter issue resolved. I'll take that next question.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that, raising the water rate for residents.
Could we get your name, ma'am?
Emily Langsner. I live in Hardwick Village. I'm a low-income homeowner, and I think that the water rate that I'm currently paying is unaffordable, and I have a very low water usage. So I feel like if there's a major renovation plan, that rate increase should not cause an increase in my already unaffordable water bill. So I don't know exactly how this boils down. You said that there's an institutional rate that the school pays as opposed to the homeowner rate. But that's something that I agree with Paul, that people who live in Hardwick Village should not inordinately have to foot the bill of a major renovation.
Any other questions for me?
Yeah, this is on. Thanks, Sean, and I just want to say welcome to Sean again, because we're really happy to have him as our town manager, and also to echo Sean's earlier comment, just thanking John Jewett for his years of service here, which were 8, I think, many. So for the budget, just before we get into voting on it, I just want to do a quick highlights tour of the budget. And Basically, the town manager's office and the select board have worked to put together a budget that basically continues to fund the town operations at the current levels of service. We haven't tried to really add or take away any major things with this budget. It's more or less just trying to keep things going the way they've been going, and with minor improvements. So just to start, this is on page 9 of your book, and it's kind of on the bottom third of the page, and just the highlights. So the total revenues that we're predicting are only going up a small amount. It's only going up 1.77%, or $18,000. The total budget that we've put together and proposed here for you today has an increase of $151,000. That's 4.72%. And if you net that all out relative to what we voted on last year, that would reflect a 6.15% increase in property taxes. Because when you net out the revenues to the expenses, then we're left with an increase of $132,794. And then just to dive in really quickly to the departments and where some of that increase comes from. The highway department has a fairly large increase. This is largely driven by health insurance changes. So the town, because we're a relatively small employer, when we have people employees whose family situation changes and then they move from, say, an individual plan for health insurance to a family plan, the cost is substantially higher. So we see that this year in a couple of departments. Highway is one of them. The other things in highway are the price of road salt keeps escalating quite substantially. And that's a driver. There are a few other things. We're adding more money for gravel. Those are the main things in that. Police is a very small percentage increase. Office expenses, again, this is another budget that's hit with an increase in health insurance due to changes in employees' situations. And the line items is another fairly big one, and that is largely driven by increases in our capital funds, the capital equipment, the capital roads, and the line items. Trying to think if there's anything else. Anyway, that's the 40,000 foot view, and if I've been told before not to walk through the whole budget because you can all read all the numbers on your own. So given that as just a framework to start a discussion, who has questions?
Page up front with the mic, please.
Jan Howard. My question is, have we changed our salt policy in this town? Because something's changed a lot.
Do you want to respond to that?
No, nothing's changed, yeah.
Nothing's changed in the last 5 years, the way it's applied, the way, because my truck says it is.
The only time we ever use calcium chloride is when the temperature gets really down low. That's the same stuff that we put on the roads there during the summertime, but it has a winter mix to it, with basically all they do is add a little bit more water to it.
So that water, when I see it so wet, and then you get it to a dark shaded area and it's frozen, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, we haven't done anything different with the salt, and it's the same way we've applied it for.
Because we're using it so much more.
Well, this year, winter started back in November.
This year.
Can everybody hear? Tom, you have to use the mic, please.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just that the winters are getting longer, and it seems like we're out just about every day, whether it's for a 1/4 inch of snow now on the main roads or what. But we've salted, I don't know, probably about 90% all winter long. I mean, it seems like we're out 20, 25 days a month since November, just salting every day. But our hit this year, salt went up $11 more a ton. It has been staying steady. It's been only going up like a quarter, but because of the shortage last year, so they say, they drove our prices up almost like $11 more a ton. But yeah, our salt implication hasn't changed at all of what we've done, so.
And my last question then, the Macville Road is totally falling apart right now. It's cracking right down the middle of it the whole way. That wasn't that many years ago that we redid that.
Yeah, it's probably 2-3 years now, I think. But, well, that's Vermont. I haven't seen one road that hasn't been paved that year, then the following year it gets cracked. It's just that the frost raised heck with everything.
This is
right
like
here.
an inch crack, though. It's not just a little crack.
Yep. Yep. It rises up the road, and she'll settle back down this spring, and hopefully she'll seal back up.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the Select Board or Eric in regards to the budget? And I forgot to have Jan Howard mention her name.
And I forgot to mention my name the first time, Paul Fix from here in Hardwick. Sorry, I'm Paul Fix from here in Hardwick. In the line items is a line for the Judavine Memorial Library. Is that an appropriate subject for discussion?
Definitely, because we're on, yeah, that's part of the budget.
Just making sure, I thought so.
What page are you on, Paul? Do you know?
Wherever the line items are, I can't say. I'm really not on a page because what I have to talk about is not.
Danny says it's page 14.
Right. What I have to talk about I don't think is here. Is Jody here to speak if questions arise? So over the last several years, the library has done a number of things. From my time on the board, endowments were moved to the Vermont Community Fund, which generates income every year that may or may not be used by the library, aka the town. There have also been significant contributions made to the library, in some cases bequests, in some cases anticipating the building of a new library. There have been significant expenses paid to consultants and architects. And to the best of my knowledge, little of, if any of that, has appeared in town reports as either revenues or expenses. Could someone talk to us about how that's accounted for and how that's reported?
So Jody can respond some, but I'll just toss out that what you're looking at in the town budget that was currently under discussion is just the annual operating budget of the library, and doesn't include those funds that are raised outside by like the Friends of the Judavine, or and then expended outside this regular operating budget. Jody, do you have any?
Yes, we have the funds that are raised toward the expansion project are contained in a separate building fund that is also administered by the town, but is not part of our annual operating budget. So the annual operating budget includes only the line items that you see in the report that are around staff and supplies, and everything that is raised and is spent on anything related to the capital campaign or the building project and the building fund are all in separate funding, separate fund, also administered by the town. But none of that is impacted by tax dollars, and that's why it's not reflected in this report. What was your other, I'm trying to remember what your other part of your question was. Oh, I do want to mention that the one thing that the trustees did this year that is reflected in that report is that we felt it was important to bring our staff salaries up to the area standard, and that's the bulk of any increase that was done this year was all in salaries to our staff, who put in many, many extra hours over what we actually pay them for.
Any other questions in regards to the budget? Right behind you.
Rob Lewis, Center Road. What is the percentage contribution to health insurance by town employees now?
Eric?
Right. I should, Casey, do you know? I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
Is she a Hardwick resident?
She can whisper in my ear.
Okay, what's her name?
Casey Rowell.
Casey Rowell is not a Hardwick resident, so I am going to assume that we want her to speak. Is there any objection? Okay, Casey.
So Casey says it's 16.5%, and it'll go to 17% on July 1st. So, yeah, so for the budget we're currently discussing, it would be 17%.
Any other questions? Oh, we have one in the back.
I just
Name,
wanted to make-
please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Gagnon, Hardwick resident. I just wanted to encourage my fellow townsfolks to really look into the Medicare for All proposals that are happening on the federal level, because when people say, how would we pay for it? We would pay for it by not having these same increases happening, possibly even having decreases happening in local and state budgets, because everybody would be getting their insurance differently, and we would not be, as citizens, paying for other people's insurance in addition to our own out of our pocket. We would all be paying a fair rate for everyone to be cared for. It bears looking into. I just wanted to encourage everyone to do that.
Any other questions or comments in regards to the budget before us? Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Sean. Oh, I'm sorry, Lorraine.
Oh,
Wait a minute, Lorraine. Paige has to bring you the mic.
I was just wondering if we're going to have a place for composting in town again. This way we have to drive to Greensboro Bend or 3-4 miles down the street.
Eric?
Yeah, so we could have a place for composting again. I believe we could apply for a grant to help us with that. So the previous situation and funding kind of expired, and so for those who don't know, there was public composting next to the old bank building by Richard Brochu's garage. Funding for that went away, and we can apply for grant funding to do something. If people are interested in doing that, please let us know. Contact Sherry Cornish, who is our representative to the Solid Waste District.
Anything else? Over here? She's coming with the mic behind you.
Good morning, Brad Furland. Last year we had a conversation about adding a police officer to the staff, or by accepting, I think it was a COPS grant. And I think, were we going to add an investigator to the staff or something along those lines? I'm just curious if you could give us an update on how, accepting that grant and adding that position to your force has made a difference.
We didn't add an investigator, but we did have another position that we added. The investigator was previously a patrolman that had done investigative work. He was promoted to the investigator position. This week, we actually are in the process of hiring for that COPS grant. We had previously hired someone, and they backed out. It was such a long period to be able to get into the police academy. Now it's almost a year that individual backed out. We were able to hire somebody, which is a process we're going through this week, actually, and that individual's already certified. So we don't have 100% results because we haven't been able to fill that position until this week. But I can tell you the investigator's position has worked out very well. I don't have numbers with me today, but I had brought them to the select board a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, to show what the investigator has been able to do and the amount of crimes that were investigated by that individual, allowing the patrol officers to go back to the street and allowing this investigator to follow up on crimes. He's also worked very closely with merchants in the area, working on bad checks, etc., which has been very positive to help the merchants out as well. So I don't have 100% numbers because there's no way by not filling that position until now. But so far, everything is going extremely well. And as you see, we've had less than a 1% budget increase, proposed for this year, and being able to have a very good service, I believe, for the citizens.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak before Paul speaks for a second time? Okay, Paul.
Thank you, Arise. Returning to Lorraine Hussey's comment about compost, it seems to me there are very few opportunities when Hardwickians of all interests and political persuasions are assembled in one place. I'd be curious in seeing by a show of hands who would be interested in the town looking into a grant to do composting, particularly if it would have no effect on the operating budget of the town. Would that be appropriate to ask for a show of hands?
We could do that at the end under other business.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the budget? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving a budget of $3,359,616 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the town and to authorize the select board to set a new tax rate sufficient to provide the same, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thank you. Article 6, shall the town vote to create a conservation commission pursuant to 24 Vermont statutes annotated subsection 4501. Information on this is located in a report on page 7. What is your pleasure? I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any discussion in regards to this Conservation Commission? Ann, Paige?
And Gilchrist, town of Hardwick. Louder? Closer. Okay. I believe there's a quest for $50 on this to start up the commission and I'm wondering in future town meetings, will there be more money needed for this?
Where the hell did I find it? Does anybody have an answer to that?
Still alive? Yeah. I can try to respond. So my understanding, based on reading what the the role and responsibilities of Conservation Commission is fairly clearly laid out in Vermont state statute, and it's primarily advisory. So basically what a Conservation Commission would do is things like inventorying town lands that maybe have interesting or important habitat or historical value or something like that, and then providing advice to the Planning Commission, the Select Board, various town agencies. So I wouldn't anticipate that the Conservation Commission itself would need a lot of funding in the future. Someone else may have a different opinion, but that's my read on it. And the one thing that, things that might require funding were, let's say, for example, they advised the town that we should undertake some planting more trees in a portion of the village or in East Hardwick or something, and maybe that would require funding. But I don't see it growing into something that requires a lot of funding just for the commission itself.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, and actually in the startup cost, they're asking for $300.
Paige, over here. There's someone by the stage that wishes to speak.
Michael Lou Smith. I'm not involved with the proposal for the Conservation Commission in Hardwick here, but I have worked with a lot of other towns and conservation commissions across the state. And just to your point, I think it varies widely. Some conservation commissions don't really require much of any funding. Others sometimes request, $1,000 a year, $2,000 a year if they have projects they're saving for or something like that. And so just across the state, it's not uncommon for a small amount of money to be requested by conservation commissions, but it's certainly, it's not required or anything like that. So it just depends on what the Conservation Commission here is working on.
Any other comments or questions in regards to the Conservation Commission?
Brad Ferland. I'm just curious what the select board's thoughts are on this request and whether or not you would see them as a value-added source to you guys in the decisions that you make on an annual basis.
So I can say I think that it would be a valuable service, and I think we have some folks in the community who are eager to step up and work on this. I don't. Anybody else want to say anything? Danny Hill would like.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly. I have no problem with it whatsoever. And as far as funding goes, they're obviously going to be advising the town on things that hopefully will improve the community and our way of life. And whenever that occurs, certainly the select board and if it's a big project, the town would be able to weigh in on that expense. So it's not going to be expensive to have it, but as we look at the future, some of the things that we as a town might want to do that was recommended may cost money. So I think we'll be a better place if we have it than if we don't have it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, John Lucier, Hardwick. I have one question on one line in the description, and it says, monitoring for invasive plants and insects. Does this mean that the Conservation Commission would be able to go onto private land anytime they wanted to and look for stuff, do whatever they want to do? Because anytime that I've dealt with commissions, especially sanctioned by the state, within a few years they turn into regulatory agencies. And I just wondered if that would be coming down the road in the future.
I would just reply that I think that the roles that this commission can serve in and the things they're allowed to do are really clearly laid out by statute, and I don't growing into a regulatory body. Private property, I wouldn't think they would have any special privileges beyond what any of us have to walk onto someone else's property, and it would be nice if they asked first.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rachel Kane, and went up to doors and knocked on doors to tell people, just educate them what's there and how it might impact their land. For example, wild chervil will spoil the hay if you're haying there because it spoils the taste of the hay. We've got some phragmites and other things that are going to affect the river and fish habitat, so it's really would be, our focus is on the public lands, but also to educate landowners through workshops or activities. So no, it's strictly advisory. And if there's any other questions, anyone can ask me, or my friend Judy here, Judy Belaires, and we thank you for your support.
Anyone else? All those in favor of Article 6, shall the town vote to create a Conservation Commission, pursuant to 24 VSA subsection 4501, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 7. Now we're into the appropriations. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $4,500 for the support of the Greensboro Nursing Home? They have a blurb on page 20. What is your pleasure? I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $4,500 for the support of the Greensboro Nursing Home, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Article 8. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,500 for the support of AWARE? They're also on page 20. What is your pleasure? Have a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,500 for the support of AWARE, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Article 9. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $1,500 for the support of the Lamoille Family Center? And their explanation for need is on page 20 and 21. What is your pleasure? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $1,500 for the support of the Lamoille Family Center, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 10. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,000 for the support of the Hardwick Historical Society? And their information is on page 21. What is your pleasure? Is there a second? Any discussion? Page? Just, no, I'm waiting for Page. This page.
It's my same old speech every year.
Your name, please?
It's Rain Huzzy, and I have tickets for sale for the corned beef and cabbage dinner at the Legion Hall, March 16th, Saturday night. I'd like to see everybody come. If you need tickets, I have some for sale.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,000 for the support of the Hardwick Historical Society, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 11. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,161 for the support of the Northeast Kingdom Human Services, and their information is on pages 21 to 22. What is your pleasure? We have a motion. Is there a second? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,161 for the support of the Northeast Kingdom Human Services, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 12. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,000 for the support of the Hardwick Area Community Justice Center? And their information is on page 22. What is your pleasure? Have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,000 for the support of the Hardwick Area Community Justice Center, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 13. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $2,500 for the support of the Hardwick Area Food Pantry? And their information is on pages 22 and 23. I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any discussions or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $2,500 for the support of the Hardwick Area Food Pantry, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 14. Shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $2,600 for the support of the Caledonia Home Health Care and Hospice? Their information is on page 23, and I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $2,600 for the support of the Caledonia Home Health Care and Hospice, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 15, shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,000 for the support of the Hardwick Community Television Channel 16? And a second, and their information is on pages 23 and 24. Any discussions or questions? All those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,300 for the support of the Hardwick Community Television, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 16, shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,400 for the support of rural community transportation with their info on page 24. What is your pleasure? I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,400 for the support of rural community transportation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 17, shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $3,500 for the support of the Northeast Kingdom Arts Council, which works out of the Hardwick Townhouse, and their information is on page 24. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $3,500 for the support of the Northeast Kingdom's Art Council, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 18, shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $4,500 for the support of the Northeastern Kingdom Council on Aging, and they're on 24 and 25. I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any discussion or questions?
Just as a correction, I believe... Paul Fix, yes. As a correction, I believe the organization is the Northeast Council on Aging. Someone... Northeast Kingdom Council on Aging, correct. I don't know if I should propose an amendment or whether it matters.
If it's no objection, we will just make that correction, because I looked on page 24, and they are the Northeast, not the Northeastern. So I will just make that as a friendly amendment and do it. So that it'll read that to support the Northeast Kingdom Council on Aging. Thank you, Paul. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $4,500 for the support of the Northeast Kingdom Council on Aging, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Article 19, shall the town appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $2,100 for the support of the North Country Animal League, and their info is on page 25. Have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the town appropriating a sum of money not to exceed $2,100 for the support of the North Country Animal League, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion is carried. Excuse me, just one moment. Now for the long ones. Article 20, shall the town authorize a select board for the period of 1 year to enter into contracts with new industrial and commercial owners, lessees, baileys of real property, or with the existing or new owners, lessees, baileys, or operators who construct, acquire, or renovate industrial and or commercial real property, including additions to existing property, for the purpose of fixing and maintaining the municipal rate applicable to such real property, or for the purpose of fixing the amount of money which shall be paid as an annual municipal tax upon such real property pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Vermont Statutes Annotated, Section 2741. I have a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion in regards to Article 20 as I previously read? All those in favor of Article 20 as previously read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. My second favorite article. Article 21. Shall the town authorize the select board for the period of 1 year to enter into contracts with operators of agricultural real property or with existing or new owners, lessees, baileys, or operators who construct, acquire, or renovate, or who intend to construct, acquire, or renovate agricultural real property for the purpose of fixing and maintaining the valuation of such real property in the grand list, for the purpose of fixing and maintaining the municipal rate applicable to such real property, or for the purpose of fixing the amount in money which shall be paid as an annual municipal tax upon such real property pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Vermont Statutes Annotated, Section 2741. Have a motion. I need a second, please. Second. And a second. Any discussion or concerns in regards to Article 21 as previously read? I have one in the back. She's waiting for the mic.
Emily.
Would you stand, please?
Emily Langsner. I do not understand anything you just said.
Would any of the select board like to, there is a little blurb at the end of the warning that explains what it is, but would one of the select board members like to address this, or a lister or anyone that would know about this?
I can try to make an attempt at this, and Alberta maybe could correct me if I'm screwing it up. So basically these two articles, 20 and 21, 20 we already passed, 21 we're on, right?
Yes.
And there, we, on the select board, I think we often refer to this as tax stabilization. So this is, both these articles refer to granting the select board the power to negotiate with folks who would be paying real estate tax in our community, and to negotiate a lower tax rate. And so typically the way it's done, and it has been done in the past for buildings that were renovated in downtown Hardwick, but typically what's done is a tax at a pretty low rate, and then incrementing. I think what we've done in the past is 7 years, but it could be different. But like, so say you start a new music school in downtown Hardwick and you want to buy an old building and fix it up. And so you come to the select board and maybe we'd negotiate that you pay the current rate of tax on that building even after you fix it up, and it's now worth 4 times what it was to begin with. So you start at the current rate, and then we slowly ratchet you up over a period of years to the full rate that you need to be at, and that's to encourage people to invest in the town.
And Eric, isn't it only for industrial or agricultural, not personal property?
So this one that we're on is for agricultural.
Right.
The previous one is for industrial commercial.
Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions or comments in regards to Article 21? If not, all those in favor of approving Article 21 as I previously read, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Article 22, to transact any other non-binding business proper to be brought before said meeting. And this is where I will ask for a show of hands of those of you who would support the select board applying for a grant for composting. Okay, okay.
So the grants that are being referred to, there's a municipal grant through the solid waste district that the town is a member of. But those grants are, they top out at $10,000, and we have to exhibit that we're going to carry it forward. We're not just going to use up that money and then go away from it again, because technically that's kind of what we did when we had that pilot sort of program. That pilot showed that there was some interest, but there wasn't enough to support it. So we would have to, as a community, decide that we want to have this available to the community and possibly put in a line item, or I'm not sure exactly what, to support it going forward. Because the problem was the expense of actually getting that compost bin picked up and hauled away and emptied on a, I think, weekly or bi-weekly basis, which was relatively expensive. So that's the background on that grant.
Paige, up front with the mic, please, over here.
Dave Shepard, I would submit that the popularity would probably increase this coming year as we get closer to the state mandated requirement that everybody be composting and recycling, and that it'd be all the more important that it be convenient for us and not have to travel a distance, especially for people that don't have cars, or the elderly, or people that are in apartments who don't have all their alternative means to compost.
Anyone else? Lady in back here, Paige.
Hi, I'm Deborah Hart. I just wonder, is there, or have any people looked into the possibility of us actually building a composting site down at the Hardwick Gardens or anything? Has the Center for Ag, who do we talk to about doing something like that, rather than, I mean, maybe there's a bucket in town where people who don't have access to vehicles could dump their compost, and then we, the town, could truck it down and actually build a composting area where we could do something like that. I don't know, rather than truck it somewhere else.
There was a lady in back, right behind you, Paige.
I'm Ann Batten, and I'm a senior from East Hardwick. And I was amazed when I started saving my own food waste, how much there was. And when there was food collection next to the old brick building in Hardwick, I went down every couple of weeks and put it in there, and I began to wonder how many other people were using this, because it was very handy. Now I drive out almost to Wolcott to All Metals site and dump it there. And I'm thinking about people who live in apartments. I think David has alluded to this. What are people going to do if we are mandated to not send this stuff out of our house? We are going to run out of space for a big dump. I mean, we're almost in Canada with ours now. So I really think we need to find a way to do some thinking about getting this user-friendly, because I think more of us would be able to do it and would be willing to do it.
Up front. Okay.
I just want to follow up on that, and that it is my understanding that the collection point that used to be over here by the old bank building is now at All Metals Recycling, and all that actually goes up to standard at Black Dirt Farm. So either way, you can go directly to Black Dirt if you're on that side of town, or go to All Metals Recycling if you're on that side of town. I just want to make sure that everyone here understood that there is still a procedure in town for your organic waste.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Robin Grant, I live in Cottage Street.
You live in where?
I live on Cottage Street.
Oh, okay, I thought you said Coventry.
Thanks. Paul Fix again. As Hardwick's former representative to the Central Vermont Solid Waste District, first of all, I want to thank Sherry for jumping in to continue to maintain a connection to that organization, which we do pay for every year. This new law that's been coming into effect is going to require all of us to compost and separate our food scraps from our trash. So it seems to me, some people obviously will do it in their yards, but as a whole, people are going to pay it. Now All Metals does charge you, by the way, to drop off your food scraps. So where it was free next to Richard Brochu's, it now does cost. So by the town doing all of this at once, it could save us all money by being a consolidated thing. And the grant, in response to the comment over here, could help us to set up a local composting operation if that seemed the most effective thing to do. Thanks.
Danny?
Yeah, just so everyone understands, we've taken this very seriously. And a show of hands is a fine thing, but it's not going to be free. It's not free now. It's not going to be free in the future. It's going to cost you and I money to do this. So, you know, the question, I believe, Orais, was to apply for a grant, and I think some of the assumption was that meant we would continue with free composting. That's not going to happen. The grant would get us started, but there would be a cost to it. So if we're going to do a show of hands, it should be how many people are committed to paying additional fees, either through taxes or tipping fees, to compost, because it's not about whether we can do it or want to do it. Convenience, as David said, popularity, these are great things, but they all come with a cost. So if we're going to ask a question, let's ask how many are willing to pay and how much are you willing to pay? And as a select board, I know we would be more than glad to have it picked up right at your doorstep, but we're not going to be the ones that are going to implement that cost on the taxpayers unless we're directed exactly to do that. And our gut feeling, or at least mine, I won't speak for everyone's, is that the majority of the people that want composting next to the old composting back want a free service. And there will be no free service. There are no grants. There are no magic pails to put it in. So, you know, if we're going to ask a question and as a town have a serious discussion, let's talk about how much it's going to cost and who's going to fund it. And we can do that twice a month at a select board meeting. 5 of us are there. And generally not very many of you ever are. So just a show of hands on who wants to do the right thing isn't going to give me direction to move forward. So thank you.
Robin? Paul, you have to wait, please. No, Robin.
Robin Leslie, Hardwick. My question is, if Black Dirt Farm is picking up the compost is benefiting them as an agricultural business, so why would there be a fee if they're benefiting? I understand that ultimately, if they're not the ones doing it, there would be a fee, but I don't understand if Black Dirt is getting it. Anyone?
Yep.
So I think that I believe they're a for-profit business, and that's part of their business model. They have to cover their costs by charging for picking up compost, just like you have to pay to have your trash picked up. While I'm speaking, I would just like to reiterate that we're in the part of the meeting where we have non-binding business. But I think one way we could maybe move forward on this issue is if we could say that we'll get a task force going to explore the options, because it sounds like a bunch of people have some really good ideas on how to move forward. And as has been discussed, this is not just wanting to do the right thing. There's a state law saying that we have to do this, or that we have to compost. Doesn't say how we have to do it. So I think that would be a really good way to move forward. And the reason that just historically, in recent history, when the select board was wondering what we should do about the site at the next to the bank building at Richard Brochu's, we had discussed it, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 meetings, and wondered aloud, does anybody, care if we move this forward or not? And we got no response. So now we're hearing from folks that there is some interest, and I think putting together a task force would be a good way to move forward, and we could do that. Okay, so Danny's wanting to be clear that the law is that Vermont residents need to be composting. It's not that the municipality has to do something to facilitate that.
But they can.
But we could.
Yes. Yes, yes. I got hands all over the place. Who hasn't spoke yet? Phil, right up front here. Give everybody a chance to speak once first before we go into the seconds.
This is kind
Name,
of
please.
Phil Gallant, Hardwick. Okay. First question to the select board: has anyone on the town's behalf approached the Ag Center people? Because they do compost, and the compost, I think they actually buy some, and then we compost everything that we use down there in the boxes. So if we haven't approached them or they haven't had a conversation with you, that might be an incredibly logical approach, because they would probably invite the compost. It's convenient, and it probably could eliminate costs. But in any case, I'm wondering if a conversation with them at least could be initiated.
Sounds like the task force would have its first charge. Any other comments? Aaron? Paige? Yeah, okay, Tom hasn't spoke yet.
Hi, Andrew Meyer.
Or Andrew, I'm sorry.
I'm going to wear my Center for an Agricultural Economy hat on today. And one, just thank the leadership of the Select Board and Sean and John for their leadership in the Yellow Barn Economic Development Project, helping that move forward. Also, just to inform everybody, this summer the Center for an Agricultural Economy has been raising money for about a year to tear down one of the buildings, the smaller building at Atkins Field, and replace it with a pavilion for community events, farmers markets, and activities, music. Of course, if it's up to John, though, it's not music very loud. But we've raised $200,000, and we've got $20,000 left to raise. That $20,000 we're going to be seeking from community support. So if anyone's inclined, we have a $5,000 match at this time. So any support you can give toward that would be greatly appreciated for this community space in Hardwick. And also, certainly the Center for an Agricultural would be in a good position to support composting, whether at the Venture Center to be trucked up to Black Dirt or partner with Black Dirt at Atkins Field. So thanks.
Thank you. Paige up here for Aaron, or if he's got a mic.
Just a couple points. With the mandates that legislature has given us, both on trash over the last few years and on composting, we've seen a large increase in illegal dumping. Last year we responded to a lot of reports of illegal dumping, everything from tires, couches, refrigerators, TVs, you name it, and just garbage bags thrown off to the side of the road, thrown into dump areas. So we do have a problem with that, and with the mandates that we've been given. Some people are not willing to comply in any way or pay to get rid of that trash. So we need to think about additional costs as we're looking at this. And another point from somebody who lives in a village, the Center for Ag may be a great idea for a composting area, but we would want to look at containment systems for that composting because you will have a lot of unwanted critters in a village that we don't normally have, and I know who's going to get the calls on those. So you're going to pay one way or the other. It just depends on how much you want to pay. Yeah, right.
Over here, Paige. The lady in the yellow shirt, if you'd stand, she'll give you the mic.
Hi, I'm Meredith Holt from East Hardwick. Just about the tires and the couches and all that, I have noticed in the Northeast Kingdom there are some towns that have one day a year where they have a free return policy. There's a free collection of tires and stuff. I don't know if that's going to be part of the composting task force or how that would get handled, but I just wanted the select board to know about that and see if it's something that the town could help support through All Metals somehow. Have a free drop-off day for tires, and I think people would take advantage of that instead of dumping it off the side of the road as deep into the woods as they possibly can. No, that's what I said. I know, but it might be worth it to us. Yeah. Exactly. But that's what I think that's a select board issue maybe to bring up.
Anything new in regards to this? Over here.
Hi again, my name is Deborah Hart. I work at the Buffalo Mountain Food Co-op, and we've been really working hard on trying to figure out all the legalities of the recycling laws that have been, that we have been asked of to comply with. Sorry, that sentence was poor. Anyway, we also had a representative from the Central Vermont Solid Waste District who came to the store, and we walked through the store, and she basically pointed out everything that could be recycled and couldn't. There are a lot of things that everybody purchases on a regular basis that we think, oh, we can recycle this, and you cannot. So I would ask everybody to really make sure when you recycle things that it is something that actually can be recycled through the All Metals recycling in Hardwick, because if you put things in your recycling that they cannot handle, then it gets thrown out. It all gets thrown into the garbage. There is also an additional recycling center over in Barrie. It's called the ARC. It's additional, what is it? Something additional recycling center, right? So they will take things that you cannot recycle at the All Metals, and I have been looking into that. I have actually been thinking about maybe forming some kind of a committee or something, because they will do things by the carload. So for example, empty deodorant containers, empty toothpaste containers, empty dental floss, energy bar wrappers, cereal bags, chip bags of all bizarre things, and any plastics that can have some stretch to it. All of those things cannot be recycled here, but can be recycled there. So if we could do a carpool and stuff someone's car with recyclables, for $5 you could do a whole carload. So anyway, if anybody wants to get in touch with me at the co-op, I have a vision of zero waste at the co-op. I have a vision of bag-free Hardwick. I have a lot of crazy visions, but I would love to talk to more people who are more interested in just not having any more landfill stuff. Thank you.
Sherry?
Thank you, and I will be in touch soon. But just so that everyone knows, there are a number of informational flyers about what the ARC is and what they collect versus what you can recycle at All Metals, et cetera. There's all kinds of information out there on the table next to the GRACE information. So,
anything new? Robin?
I'd just like to say that the number of people here is a minuscule amount compared to the number of households in our community who are not aware of the recycling of things that pollute the recycling stream. And yet, when I recently read Casella's waste information and found out that yes, you can recycle toothpaste tubes and all sorts of other things that Deborah was just mentioning, I don't think our town knows that. I would suggest that the newspaper covers that extensively, and I think somehow the town has a bit of an obligation to let their residents know that we are part of a community that needs to be doing this, and what does go into the stream and what doesn't go in the stream. It's public service, it's a necessity, and we need to be educated, and those of us who are self-educating still have the difficulty of getting those excess recyclables to the proper place in a carload, and it's a pain in the neck, and we should be doing something as a community, whether it's what Deborah said as a community committee or whatever, but I do think the town has a certain degree of responsibility to be informing its citizens on a better way, because not everybody reads what comes in the mail from Casella.
It kind of sounds like a task force is being offered by the select board. And for those that wish to serve, I'm assuming they'll be putting a call out, and you can contact Sherry if you're willing to serve on that task force or offer information. Mary?
Mary Gagnon. I just wanted to add to what was said earlier about a lot of this stuff gets covered at regular select board meetings, and I want to thank HCTV for covering the select board meetings for those of us who don't have a way to get to them, and to remember that even if you don't have cable access, you can access many of the videos through their online site, through Vimeo, through the Facebook HCTV Hardwick Community Television site, and educate ourselves and stay up to speed so that when we come together like this, we can start from a little bit better base to go further into the discussions without taking up everybody's day.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, I see our representative is here just in time because we're almost ready to adjourn. And Chip, being a resident of Standard, needs a suspension of rules to speak. So unless anyone objects, I will allow Chip time. Is there anything else that you wish to discuss before Chip comes up? I have one in the back. Or did you have something? Okay. If Chip doesn't mind, go ahead, Jim. Wait for Paige is coming with a microphone. Up front.
Thank you.
Your name, please.
I had a question for the select board.
Your name, please.
James Nudd.
Into the mic.
The question I had for the select board is on the rail trail. In the town report, it's listed as the work was complimentary. I don't see anything else. Complimentary, I believe, on page 27 in your report. My question would be, basically how much money was spent on improving the rail trail last fall, and where did it come from? And my second question would be, is the rail trail open for snowmobiles now? And I guess the third question would be, were the banks, the steep banks, where the work was done, was that seeded down last fall? Thank you.
So I think what you're referring to is last fall, the town road crew actually did some work on washed out culverts on the rail trail between kind of the Memorial Park area, Hardwick Dental Office, between there and Dona's, I guess. There's between there and the Black Bridge even. There were some culverts washed out. The town road crew took some time, used some town material, so it came out of the road crew budget, and they placed, I believe, one new culvert headers, and they did repair around I think 3 culverts that were there. As to whether it was seeded, I don't know. No, it didn't get seeded last fall. Winter did hit us a little earlier than we thought. And as to whether it's open, I think Danny can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that whole corridor is leased by Vast and is technically open to snowmobile traffic. So it's an allowed use. So yeah, I don't think it would be super convenient right now, but I think it's allowed. Was there something else or no? Is that it?
No, the only question was,
yeah.
Basically, you spent money fixing the rail trail.
Correct. We did spend some money fixing part of the rail trail.
Roughly how much was that, and where did it come from? Is it Hardwick taxpayers' money?
It was definitely, Hardwick taxpayers' money came out of the town budget,
Jim,
came out of the road
use the
crew.
mic, please.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but a few $1,000s, maybe
$4,500.
About 4,500.
That's for 2 culverts, or 2 or 3 culverts.
There were 3 culverts there, one replaced, the others repaired, I believe.
That's for maybe 100 or 200 yards of fill? Correct. Roughly, is that correct?
It's some number of yards. Yeah.
And 3 or 4 men working with 4 or 5 pieces of equipment for on and off for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's $4,500.
Pretty on and off. I mean, it wasn't.
I understand. I just said it was on and off.
Yep.
For 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know the total time or anything else, but so this whole project last fall cost $4,500 of Hardwick taxpayers' money.
I think that's our best guess. Is that?
Well, that's not including our own time down there.
That's material.
That's just the material cost.
So yeah, there were hours.
Right. So basically then the road crew gets paid, right? And that comes from town resources. So it would be $4,500 for materials and then another a few thousand or something for labor.
Yep. And
also for fuel for the equipment and so on, running the equipment.
And we are planning to spend more.
Right.
So we've got another, we're probably, with the project that we have planned for this coming, for the, well, I guess the year we're in now, I think we're probably going to spend, it's out of our, it'll be town taxpayer money, and it'll be coming out of the trails and sidewalk, or the sidewalks, and I can't remember the line item, but there, we have a line item for capital that we saved, and part of that are bike path and sidewalks. And it's something on the order of $20,000 to $30,000 probably we're going to contribute towards building out the trail more. Okay. And we're going to leverage that to, or we're going to use that to leverage several $100,000 in grant money to continue to build it so that we have that.
So for the present then, it'll come out of the public access funds or whatever you call them, right? I mean, roads and sidewalks.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the plan, and the, you know, overall the project cost is quite large, but we're hoping that the benefit will be commensurately large for our community.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Wendy Tanner, and I'm from Hardwick. And I have a concern. We have had an abundance of snow, as we all know, this year. And when that happens, our roads go from 2-lane down to 1 lane, because where are you going to put it all? And I do believe the town's doing the absolute best that they can do with what we do have. But it gets hard to see around the corners of what's coming up the road that you're connected to. And so my concern is there any way that we can change winter road ordinance, or have winter road ordinance that are different, to where cars cannot park on the side of the road in the village, like where people live, when there are driveways at all these houses, but they're parking on the road when our roads are already so small. We would never see a child that's running, you know, out in front of a car or something coming. And it just makes it hard for the traffic to go through and maneuver. So I guess what I'm requesting is that there's a road ordinance for winter. I would assume it also makes it very hard for our town trucks and stuff to get through.
Thank you. Any other non-binding? Ross, right behind you.
Thank you, Ross Connolly. I live on West Church Street, and a year ago at town meeting I had raised concern about the West Church Street sidewalk not being kept clear. And I guess there were other sidewalks in town. And considering the amount of snow we've had this year, I just thank the road crew for their efforts to the sidewalk's a lot better this year than it was last year. It's not perfect, but it's going in the right direction, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ross. Anyone else? I'll go back to Chip. If there is no objections, I will allow him to speak on our legislative process going on. Chip? You don't need that.
Thanks very much for inviting me or allowing me to speak here today. I guess I'll start with Act 46. There is considerable activity going on in all of our towns, and I received word on Saturday morning that the judge had denied injunctive relief for the lawsuit that's going forward in the state to delay consolidation of imposed consolidation, which includes OSSU, our district here. So for the first 3 weeks in the legislature, we debated whether or not we should delay this imposed consolidation. It was what resulted is an amendment that came out of the Education Committee that actually allows some districts to delay the process. In the meantime, the Secretary of Education came forward and recommended that 4 months to put together a consolidation plan when it was imposed on our district in November was not reasonable or prudent. So that his recommendation was to support a 1-year delay. The bill that would have resulted in a 1-year delay for all districts who have not yet consolidated failed. And then what the Education Committee did was they picked out some districts, ours included, because for the last 4 years, we were told, I was told, our community was told, that there was no worry that OSSU did not have the structure to consolidate, that we had the requisite number of students, and that we had nothing to worry about. And that came from the Commissioner, the Secretary of Education, to me personally, numerous occasions. It came to me from the Chair of the Education Committee before Act 46 was even passed. And what happened was that turned out not to be. The Board of Education, in its infinite wisdom, decided that as of November, they dropped what I call the consolidation bomb. And they have required that Hardwick, Stannard, Greensboro, and Woodbury all consolidate. Well, that came quite suddenly, and what the Education Committee decided that it was prudent to give more time. So the amendment that passed out of the House was to allow more time for this consolidation to happen. When I spoke on the floor, it was a matter that if we get this right, if we are able to have unanswered questions answered, if we are able to go forward in a prudent way for our school boards not to be under incredible stress, to put this together, to put budgets together, to elect boards, school boards, consolidated school boards, maybe we'll get it right. Maybe when we move forward on Act 46, which is inevitable, that we will get it right. And maybe citizens who will be asked to vote on these articles of consolidation will understand what some of these unanswered questions are and have answers to them and make a right choice and make a good choice, and maybe Act 46 will benefit the students in our communities as it was intended to do, as one of the goals of Act 46 was. So I think right now it passed out, this amendment passed out of the House, and it's now in the Senate. I had a conversation with the chair of the Senate Education Committee. I related to him our situation, and he had no idea. He had no idea of that we were told. I mean, we hired 2 consultants, and both consultants determined that there was no way forward under Act 46 to consolidate these schools. And all of a sudden, it's completely changed. So I did speak to the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and he is going to invite me to testify to what's happening in our district. So right now, what's keeping this delay from happening and keeping this pressure on our school boards is that the Senate needs to pass this out, and it needs to go to the governor. The governor has already indicated that he would support a 1-year delay for districts such as ours who are trying to move on this huge piece of consolidation without enough time. So that's the latest that's going on there. I just wanted to cover a few things. I have no good news on vehicle inspections I met with Buddy Hay recently and Art Brochu, who tell me that these check engine lights that come on and cause vehicles to fail inspection are not oftentimes related to oxygen sensors or emission controls, that they go to brake systems and transmissions and all these other pieces of the vehicle. And they sometimes are fixing vehicles to the tune of $400, $500, $600, $700. And because these lights don't recycle immediately, they cannot put an inspection sticker on that vehicle when it leaves their shop. That makes no sense. Now, last year we asked Department of Motor Vehicles to revisit their manual and rewrite their manual so that the inspections focus more on safety issues rather than small holes, rust holes in the back fender, and various other things that are causing vehicles to rusted brake rotors and things like that that are causing vehicles to fail. So I have no good news. I brought that to the Transportation Committee, and they were listening, but when it came out, they will not take it up until after crossover, which is next week. So it won't happen, and nothing will happen this year because their priority is subsidizing electric vehicles. Now, you know, I have to say that's not a bad idea, but for folks around here, number one, we heard last week from senior citizens advocates, and they were telling me that they have issues surrounding our senior citizens who cannot afford new vehicles, who can't pass inspection on their vehicles that they own. And transportation then becomes limited or impossible. This is not what we want to happen to our senior citizens. This is not it. Poor people can't afford $500 and $600 repairs on their vehicles. So while electric vehicles may make sense, subsidizing them may make sense, well, it makes more sense in Chittenden County, where you're not driving as far as we are, and a range on an electric vehicle being 50 or 60 miles when you can't get to the store and back or to Montpelier and back in that amount of time without charging your vehicle. So, you know, I appreciate what they're doing, but they're not hearing what's happening here in the Northeast Kingdom to people who can't afford these repairs and to our senior citizens who can't get out to get their important medication and to get to the doctor's appointments because they have a vehicle that may be 5 or 6 years old and they can't pass inspection. So there's a few other things. Mental health and opioid substance abuse disorder continues to plague our state. The good news is that we have made some inroads. The hub and spoke model of treatment that has been established here in Vermont is now a national model for substance use disorder, opioid substance use disorder. So that's encouraging. Our rate of overdose deaths is slightly down. But in contrast to that, as opposed to last year, we're seeing about 2,000 to 3,000 more people in treatment now than there were about a year or so ago. So, and that happens in part because right now you can, an individual who suffers from substance use disorder can present themselves to this hub unit, which is over in St. Johnsbury. And they can immediately start counseling and medically assisted treatment in order to see if we can overcome that. The best model is for rehab, then medically assisted treatment, and then follow-up in recovery centers. Last year we did some work around recovery centers. This year I've been moved to the Committee for General Housing and Military Affairs. And I sit as vice chair in that committee, and we've been taking up things around some issues surrounding recovery housing, because when somebody does get out of substance use or rehab, they oftentimes need more support in the community, housing that is immediate, and these recovery centers are the people that are on the ground in our communities who are driving these folks to their appointments, to help them get apartments set up and to help them get their lives back together, because what we are looking to do is to try to make or to have these folks become productive members of our communities again. and I've seen it happen. When I worked at the public defender's office, I would work with someone who suffered from substance use disorder, and 3 months later they would come back and they'd say, I got into treatment, I got my medication, I've reunited with my family, I see my son again, I have my job back, I have an apartment. That's the goal that we want to pursue, because otherwise we're heading down a really bad road that continues with property crime and huge medical costs that are associated with these kind of substance use disorders. I hear a lot about how people are fleeing Vermont. Young people are fleeing from Vermont. But I guess the National Movers Association study finds that actually all of the Northeast states are losing population. People are just moving south. I mean, weather's an issue, transportation is an issue. So we're seeing all our New England states losing population, but in fact, Vermont is the highest percentage of inbound migration. Now, that's contrary to what a lot of people seem to be telling me their thoughts are. Now, everyone knows somebody who moved to Florida, granted, but this study indicates that people are not fleeing the state. So we talk about affordability. I heard a lot about that. I appreciate that. I think that's a really important piece to living in Vermont. So what does affordability entail? Well, for the third year running right now, we will pass a balanced budget, which has no new taxes, and some minimal fees that actually will not impact an average citizen. So we're going to keep a control on our budget once again. It's very difficult. Vermont has a small economy, and they have considerable needs for the population. So when the appropriations gets all these requests up to the tune of $100 million this year for funding, what they have to do is place these requests around where money is so that we can pass a balanced budget. But I think that my opinion is that the second piece of affordability, and for the last 2 years I've moved around the community and I've asked people, and young people who are carrying young children with them, and I go up and I say, what would keep you in Vermont? What would be the thing that would most keep you in Vermont? What would bring young people and families to Vermont? And without exception, they tell me better pay. So I think we need a balance here. We're looking at a minimum wage bill right now that would raise the minimum wage over about 60 cents a year to a point of $15 an hour by 2024. And I think that that's an important piece of what we need to look at to keep young people in Vermont. That's what they're telling me overwhelmingly. And that's what we keep hearing, that's a problem, is these people are moving away from Vermont, that our population is dwindling and our population is old. Well, those two pieces that I just spoke about, one is inspections for senior citizens' vehicles, and the other is young people who graduate from college, and they tell me that they're looking at, they have student loans, and they're looking at $12.50 an hour to work in a profession, a mental health profession, which is incredibly stressful, and needed in our communities. So where do we take that? I think that that's a balance that we need to look at and that we have to keep in mind when we move forward here in Vermont. Let's see. Mental health is part of that problem, that mental health the pay for mental health workers. We did initiate some pay increases for mental health workers. It has had an impact, but recruiting and retaining people in our communities who can help in these areas, these important areas, is very important. And sitting on the board at Lamoille County Mental Health, I'm hearing that their recruitment and their retention is still pretty limited. They've got about 16 open positions in the agency. So the second thing that young people tell me is childcare. That's an important piece. One woman told me that she has 2 children and that she works solely to pay her childcare monthly childcare bill. Her entire salary goes to her child care. So what are we doing about it? We've talked about it for a few years. Right now, we're looking at a few methods to help individuals, young people who would move into the early childhood development field with some college loan forgiveness. And I heard in Walden about finances being the primary reason for young people to drop out of school. So we're kind of enlarging that whole picture. We have, we have loan forgiveness for medical personnel, doctors, nurses, and such. That program's been going for some time. There was some recommended cuts for that last year, and we were determined to keep them there because it is working. Doctors and nurses have to commit to a 5-year stay in their community once they get this loan forgiveness. We're enlarging that now to some mental health workers to see if we can get people online to work in substance use disorder, substance use areas of mental health. And now, last year we passed a bill that would allow free college tuition for National Guard members and potential National Guard members. What we saw was that young people were moving were joining the Guard in New York and in Massachusetts because they offered this. So we suggested that this happen. The House put about $650,000 into that, and the Senate removed it. And so I got involved, and I helped the Appropriations Committee, and we came out with $484,000 to implement free college tuition for National Guard members and recruits. So it has, I just found out last week, it has been effective, that it was widely used, that the recruiting for National Guard in Vermont is up, and it's an important piece. I now sit on the Military Affairs Committee. We had to facilitate the election of a new adjutant general here in Vermont, and it went to Colonel Knight, who was and transferred from the Air Force Guard to the Army National Guard. And I thought that was not a bad thing. General Cray, the outgoing adjutant general, had some issues surrounding sexual harassment, complaints of women not moving up in rank in the military, and a few other things that he didn't seem to own. So I thought it was a good idea to move to Colonel Knight, who had some really good suggestions on what he would do as Adjutant General to accommodate some of these problems that were happening in the Guard. So I think, just one wrap up, I have some town meeting reports. They have some issues that I haven't spoke about here today, and I just wanted to wrap up with e-cigarettes. We have been making progress in keeping tobacco from our young people for quite a few years now, and the rates had gone way down. And due to e-cigarettes, at this point, we're seeing a 78% increase in youth use of nicotine. Now, this is not a pack of Camels. This is a little vial that has this super concentrated nicotine in it that they recommend you don't even touch it to your skin. And you put a drop of that into this vape pen, and we hear from middle school students around the state who tell us that young people are vaping on the bus, in the hallways in school, and it has really had a huge impact on nicotine addiction, because we know that between 15 and 18 years old, beginning nicotine is the most addictive time that we have. And you know, the state of Vermont spends $43 million on tobacco-related illnesses, ultimately. So I think it's a good idea to, we recommended, or we actually asked stores to put these vape cigarettes, these e-pens, away where the tobacco is, off the front shelf, so that they're not right in front of teenagers when they come in. I've heard that that has not been widely accommodated, so we need to look into that. But I think at this point, there's a movement to tax this nicotine, the same as tobacco, because it is similar to tobacco. I think that that's a wise idea, and that revenue could be well used. So I'd take any questions from anyone else? Anyone on the floor? Okay, thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, there was one down there.
Oh, okay.
you, Robin.
Absolutely.
Hi, this is Emily Langsner from Hardwick. I just am wondering about the practice of charging money to the people who are providing nicotine products to children and using that money in the state budget. It seems like kind of a conflict of interest. Because it's similar to, I just also want to comment and thank Chip for introducing the pollinator protector bill that he just introduced. It's Bill 205 that's going to be voted on in the Agricultural Committee. And there's something similar that happens with neonicotinoids. Neonicotinoids are the systemic pesticides that are causing pollinator decline. And I just want to point out the similarity between charging registration and licensing fees to corporations that are selling these poisons that are poisoning the pollinators, killing bees and so on, to charging businesses like Walgreens and Rite Aid, or to licensing fees to sell, to do various things that are harmful to our children with nicotine, which is, a similar chemical actually. We're addicted to that as a society, using these fees to boost the budget of the state. And I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I don't like to, I'm seeing a similarity there, and I just think it should be illegal rather than a fee-based thing that feeds the budget and then makes the state dependent on those fees to boost their budget.
Well, I think the key, Emily, is if some of that revenue can go into prevention, so that the idea would be to collect those revenues, taxing e-cigarettes, and direct them back into, see, a huge amount of the money that caused a lot of tobacco secession for young people was tobacco settlement money, when they were sued for misleading the public about the dangers of tobacco and nicotine. So I think that in the same idea, what we would be looking at is to collect revenue from the e-cigarettes and then put that into prevention and to education. I think that's where that goes. And I appreciate, we are ready to pass my pollinator protection bill out of Ag Committee, and I think it's going to move forward and work. We all know, and everyone I speak to knows, that without pollinators, we'd have no food. Every flowering plant, every flowering fruit and vegetable relies on pollinators to produce their fruit and vegetables. So without them, and they're dying at alarming rates as a result of these neonicotinoids, when we found that 1 teaspoon can kill 1.25 billion pollinators. And if you buy this product in the hardware store that says, make your flowers look beautiful, and you spray that on your roses, and a bee feeds on that, it's deadly. They're gone. So I think it's an important piece. I'm hoping to move it into the Senate and onto the governor's desk. Thank you. Oh,
David?
David, yep.
He's coming. Robin's coming.
Sorry.
That's all right.
David Shepard, what's the status of the abortion bill and where do you stand on it?
H 57 passed out of the House by a wide margin of 106 to 36. There were 90 co-signers on that bill, and it's moved to the Senate to see what they do to it. And the governor has not actually committed yet, although he supports a woman's right to choose. So it's passed out of the House and it's in the Senate presently, and I supported it. Women's health was the key issue for me. And having lived through abortions that were illegal many years ago when I was a young man, and my wife had friends that suffered horrendous repercussions from back alley abortions that were performed by less than adequate medical personnel and in less than sterile conditions. And I think that it's wrong to go back to that era.
My concern was that it legalized right through the 9th month with no restrictions.
Well, what it did was it codified exactly what is in Roe v. Wade. It really didn't make any changes. In fact, the only change that I saw that it made, it removed the language that suggested that embryos and fetuses are not persons. That was actually removed from the House bill. It made no other changes. I got emails that suggested that fetal material was going to be sold and used to clone human beings. I received emails that babies were ripped from the wombs of women who chose to have abortions, and the reality is that the federal law bans partial birth abortions and late term abortions, and they have to, that anyone who seeks one of those late-term abortions has to do it in consultation with a physician who can document that the mother or the mother's life is in peril, or that the fetus is in such a state that it would be dangerous to have a birth. So that really hasn't changed, David. There's a lot of information going around that it was, but it simply codified Roe v. Wade. And there's some movement to move away from some of the issues that are covered in Roe v. Wade. So there was a lot of misinformation going around. I waited, I researched it, and that was my conclusion, that women's health was at stake, and that if the federal government turns around, or the Supreme Court turns around on Roe v. Wade, Vermont women will be protected by the right to choose.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have one more right here.
Yeah.
So when we do go up to, Janice Davison, so when we do go up to $15 an hour, SSI and SSDI and stuff, is that also going to go up? Because with the cost of paying people $15 an hour, our costs are going to go up. Cost of living is going to go up, gas is going up, fuel will go up. All this will go up to support the people who are getting paid $15 an hour.
So there are a number of places in the country now that have gone to $15 an hour. What they found out in Seattle, I believe it was, there were a couple of surveys done. The first one was kind of didn't happen right. And when you research these things, you need to go a little deeper than some of the first things that you find. What they find is that actually businesses do better at $15 an hour, because when folks have a little bit more money in their pocket, they're going to spend it. And they're going to spend it in local businesses. So, you know, that's been a conclusion from places that have gone to it. New York's gone to it. We're actually, currently in Vermont, we're getting workers from New Hampshire whose minimum wage is $7.50 an hour still. So people are coming to Vermont to work from New Hampshire. So, you know, it's part of the workforce development piece as well. We need CDL drivers, we need electricians and plumbers. So if we move from middle school on to try and get training for young people who can move into careers rather than jobs, this pay issue is very important, and it has had an impact in our mental health agencies, where we have asked them to pay $14 an hour entry wage for the woman that told me that she just graduated from college and has student loans and a family, and couldn't work for $12.50 an hour. So she was looking at going back to school, incurring more debt to get a master's degree in hopes that she would get better pay. So, you know, businesses actually have not suffered in places where $15 an hour minimum wage has been implemented.
Thank you, Chip.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Anything else to come before this meeting? A motion to adjourn would be in order. Is there a second? All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. The rest of you will be here for next year. Thank you very much, and have a safe trip home. Yes, you can also stop and get your lunch on your way out in the front lobby. And thank you very much. Thank you, Chip.